CityCast Pittsburgh is coming to you today, care of the Pittsburgh Opera, presenting Puccini's enduring tale of love and heartbreak, Madama Butterfly. The final performances are this Friday and Sunday, and you can experience the tragic love story of Cho-Cho-san and Lieutenant Pinkerton like never before. The images that the opera is sharing from this show, they are so vibrant and beautiful. And of course, it is all paired with Puccini's stunning music. Don't miss out. Catch the show this weekend before it's gone. Learn more at pittsburghopera.org/citycast. Pittsburgh Opera, where can we take you?
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, new census data just dropped, and the Pittsburgh region actually grew last year by a whopping 0.001%. So not nothing, but sort of a funny thing to celebrate. But why does it matter whether the Pittsburgh area grows, and could there even be benefits to staying the same size? We're bringing back a conversation between host Megan Harris and a regional economist to find out. And stick around after the interview for a conversation sponsored by the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra about their Disrupt concerts. It's Monday, March 24th. I'm Sophia Lowe, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about.
I'm with Christopher Bream, a regional economist at the University of Pittsburgh's University Center for Social and Urban Research. You're sort of the go-to for population data around these parts.
Well, hello. It's good to see you. I guess I am. I guess that might be worth talking about the fact that, so I really focus on growth and change in Pittsburgh, really the economic competitiveness of the region, the regional economy. But I learned long ago that if you don't understand sort of the unique nature, the changing dynamics of the local population, you're really going to come to the wrong conclusions about sort of what's going on in Pittsburgh. So I take these calls and do my best.
It's a mantle I think you wear pretty well. I want to start with that metro number, the big one. It's huge, 2.434 million people. What's the difference between that figure and the other one that we see quoted all the time, 300,000? Like, what are they each for?
So, yeah, we're Pittsburgh. What is Pittsburgh? This is a question of geography, and whenever anyone starts talking about Pittsburgh, if they're not clear, which is most of the time, are they talking about the city of Pittsburgh, this municipality with a mayor that many people can identify, 300,000 people? That's very different from the metropolitan area, which, again, this one definition is 8 counties, about 2.4 million people. And then there are other definitions, right? There's a 10 county definition of southwestern Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh writ large, and there are many others.
Yeah. I know at our peak, we were roughly double this size, like 600,000 people just in the city. What happened? What went wrong?
Well,
I know some of it's steel. Like, I know that that's part of it, but.
Right. But so you've already sort of jumped into the city geography. The city of Pittsburgh has shrunk by a lot. Now, I would argue, if you ever look at history, the city of Pittsburgh with twice same geography, the same 55 square miles at the city of Pittsburgh with twice as many people, it may not be a place you might want to live. The density of that is not quite there. It's there. The city of Pittsburgh has suffered both from regional scale decline, the steel story, which is really not just a metropolitan, but that 10 county in southwestern Pennsylvania and even further have all suffered from steel. The city of Pittsburgh has also suffered from suburbanization as people everywhere have moved, reside in the suburbs more than they did in the past. I point out, and this is the number one thing, a lot of people quote what you just threw at me, which is the city of Pittsburgh's residential population has declined by, maybe about half over these last 50 years. The number of people working in the city of Pittsburgh with job locations in the city of Pittsburgh is the same as it was 50 or 60 years ago, about 300,000. Really? Absolutely. So the city of Pittsburgh has not only retained itself as a job center, about 300,000 people worked here. I have some documents, 1959, about 300,000 people worked in the city of Pittsburgh. It is about 300,000 people working in the city of Pittsburgh today.
Yeah. Well, I know there's been a lot of hand-wringing about Pittsburgh losing people or at least not gaining them for a very long time. I know that you like to bring up the infamous border guard Bob. That was before my time in Pittsburgh. Can you explain a little bit more about him?
I think there's been, we are a place that lost a lot of people in the 1980s. I mean, the steel jobs went away. A lot of people left. That type of economic migration is what we call very age selective. It was very much people in their 20s who fled here in the 1980s. I think most people who've been around have this memory of younger working age folks literally fleeing. That word comes up. And the truth of the matter is we have not had a problem with people leaving Pittsburgh for a long time. People see a lot of college graduates. Pennsylvania writ large is the largest net attractor of college matriculants in the country.
Oh.
We bring in a lot of students here. They get educated. It's normal for them to leave. We do retain a lot of them. People think we don't. If Penn State retained all of its graduates, State College would be bigger than Manhattan. We are a big college town. It is normal for, we kind of export this great education and people come here for it. We have not had a problem with people leaving the region. We do have an issue with, job and population growth means there haven't been a lot of people coming here. And just to go back to your question, and people have tried to address this problem that doesn't exist for many decades, and one of which was going to be a big regional advertising campaign now, old 24, 25 years ago, called Border Guard Bob. We were going to spend a lot of money on a national advertising campaign. Really, no, this was a locally focused advertising campaign, and big smoky bear hat guy was going to stand up there and hold up his hand and say, "You young person, you don't want to leave Pittsburgh, and here are all these great, we're going to explain to you why you're going to stick around and stay in the region." And I found it doesn't solves the wrong problem. It didn't bring people into the region. Arguably, I think it's a bit counterproductive. And it almost happened. It was going to be a couple $1 million of this advertising campaign. Only at the last minute really did that get turned off. But that type of thinking persists to this day, I think.
What a wildly unhelpful way to spend money. The city has a glorious history in that. Why do you think that growth or conversations about it are so important? Like, are there inherent benefits to getting bigger?
So now we're deep into sort of either philosophy or metaphysics. But
your favorites.
So, indeed. Look, it is a very common thing to equate growth, either population growth or employment growth or other forms of growth, income, as sort of the measure of success for this mythical region. There are two economies really in all regions. There's a part that is providing goods and services to the local population, and then there's a part that is sort of goods and services that we're exporting to the world, not to internationally, just outside the region. And these two very different economies come together. The vast bulk of jobs are that locally serving economy. And so if you're in the business, and this includes a lot of small businesses, which is why I think this resonates so much, your growth comes from providing goods and services to the local population. If it's growing, you have a growing market base. And if it's not growing and that's all you do, you're stuck. You're not really growing. So there are a lot of folks who have a vested interest in growth as a region.
Today's episode is supported by History Unerased, a provider of LGBTQ inclusive curriculums. How would your life have changed if you'd learned about influential LGBTQ figures in school? History Unerased helps teachers tell a more complete story of our nation's history. They say they're the country's leading group when it comes to bringing LGBTQ history into schools, something that's really important at a time when LGBTQ rights are under attack. And you can support this work by showing up to Yins Can't Erase Us. History Unerased is hosting an afternoon of community and celebration on Saturday, April 5th at 5801 in Point Breeze. The party will include food, drinks, music, trivia, and a giveaway, plus an appearance from Danny Roberts from the New Orleans season of MTV's The Real World. Get your tickets on their website, it's unerase.org, and then click on the supporters tab to buy your ticket and contribute to a more inclusive future for us all.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
You know, years ago, someone told me this old adage that if you're traveling or considering a new spot to visit or live, to look for cranes, that, you know, they suck for a city skyline, but they tend to indicate that new stuff is literally on the rise. It feels like Pittsburgh is, to be fair, always under construction, but with our population being what it is, I don't know. Are there upsides to staying small?
So this is a debate. I joke, but there is a value judgment here, and there to a certain degree. And this has popped up here as a debate in the past because we are a place that has not seen a lot of growth yet. One could argue quality of life can be maintained. We were in the midst of steel decline, you know, ranked number 1 for quality of life. A great story from like the early 1980s. You know, so what is quality of life? And I think there's a strong argument. Well, and this is something of a debatable proposition. I've been telling people to read a great book by a fellow named Alan Malik about this, you know, growth not being a necessarily sufficient factor in promoting quality of life. You can have a high quality of life as a nation, as a state, as a region without a lot of population growth. It's kind of a heretical thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just imagining if like a ton of people start moving to Pittsburgh, our traffic will get worse. There will be even fewer homes for folks to live in. Like in Austin, people are just stuck on the freeway all day and the houses cost $1 bajillion. Sometimes it feels nice that we are not a super crowded city.
I mean, the problem is, our problem with housing and a problem with transportation is that we haven't grown for so long. So in a sense, you know, a lot of our infrastructure doesn't match it. So it is true. What you said is very true. I think places that are expecting growth can plan for growth. You can deal with a lot of that if you plan for where you're going to be realistically. I think our challenge is a lot of the region writ large, this mythical region, the counties which have some planning capability, but really a lot of our municipalities look to a past where they were once much bigger and kind of want to get back to it, even though there's absolutely no reality that that's going to happen. And so, you know, if you're planning for a future growth that isn't going to happen, you're probably spending the wrong money, you're making the wrong plans. You want to plan for the future that really is most realistic. And I think that is the best path to having a good quality life for the folks who live, your residents, your constituents.
I mean, there are organizations that do that. I feel like, I mean, look at the airport. They're spending $25 billion to renovate, to right size the airport because we're not a hub anymore. I mean, we're kind of doing it. We're just not consistently doing it.
It's a good example. Obviously, again, another whole topic, the history of U.S. Air and how many jobs we once lost is right there. But that actually, you know, I didn't quite think of it that way. It is a right sizing to where they need to be, and they kind of had to do it. They've lost so many flights. So we do need to do similar logic in the way we think about our local communities. It's a heretical concept in our world. Some decline, certainly these steel communities that suffered through decline. The concept's called managed decline, which, you know, if I were a politician and I say I want to promote moderate or low growth, right, I would be unelected very quickly. So I feel for politicians who might even agree with me, they can never say that publicly.
Well, and there's managed decline, but there's also something called natural population decline. I think I understand that. Is that where more people are dying here than people who are born here? Is that the natural portion?
Yeah, I struggle to say dying, right? Mortality exceeds, you know, fertility, right? You know, however you want to say.
You are an academic.
Look, one of the reasons why people who are expecting a lot of growth locally really need to factor in. You can't change this. It's kind of baked into where we're at. We are an older region. And by that, I mean, we have a disproportionately more folks who are senior citizens than there are folks of childbearing ages. And that means, you know, for the size of our population, we are going to have more deaths each year than births. We were actually one of the first large metropolitan areas to begin to experience this about 20 years ago. It is the wave of the future for many more regions. More regions now suffer natural population decline. If you follow international news, whole countries now are dealing with this. This is a history-shifting moment in many countries of the world where this is becoming the norm. So it's not strange anymore. But in reality, that's where we're starting at. Our baseline growth, if no one moved, the same number of people moved in and moved out of the region every year, our natural population change is negative, which means we would be declining.
Yeah.
And people sort of say, how can you change that? And is it all related to this question of economic growth and bringing folks here? Absolutely. But that's very much a longer term construct. Where we're at right now is baked in, and it's still, we're sort of past the decline of the steel industry, right? There are very few steel jobs left in the region, but we are not past the demographic impact of so many people who left here in the early 80s because it was very concentrated. It was very much folks who were in their early 20s. They took with them their families, and they took with them their future families. And so really the region right now is suffering from really, you can almost think, a second generation impact of the grandchildren of folks who might be here having kids, having families, are really living elsewhere. And so in the near term, it's just not going to be a lot of growth.
Yeah, I mean, it seems really interesting to me that we're still feeling the effects of that. Like so many people I moved here 10 years ago, but so many people I met were boomerangers. They'd left in their teens and 20s, or they were the children of folks who had, but they had returned. At the time, the shale industry had brought a lot of people in. Now it's mostly tech and eds and meds, but it's not enough to fill in the gap of what was lost yet or ever.
Well, look, most regions and most, places that are growing, have this normal churn. When we talk about population growth, we're talking about the margin between the number of people moving in and moving out.
Yeah, which I guess has been pretty tight because we've just been inching down closer to that 300 mark for years.
Right. But the flows are much bigger than that. Every year, just to put some round numbers on it, 40 or 50,000 people move into the Pittsburgh region every year. 40 or 50,000 move out every year normally. What, we're obsessing on is sort of whether or not one side of that equation is a little bigger than the other, which is going to, at the end of the day, be a much smaller fraction of that. So all regions have this flow. What I think you've alluded to is this question of, boomerangs. The academic term might be, this return migrant, return migration. People tend to moving back to where they used to live.
Yeah.
I tell you, I don't want to poo-poo it. That is a normal part of migration flow for most regions. We know we have networks, we have family networks, we have information networks, we have work networks in these places that we came from. So most places see a disproportionate flow of folks coming back to where they did. I'm not quite sure. I don't want to say it is or isn't true because I haven't looked at it in a while, that we have more or even less boomerang migration than elsewhere. I do suspect, in true Pittsburgh thing, because we're so obsessed with people leaving, when we notice this, it sticks out in our head more. Said, "Oh my God, you've moved back to Pittsburgh." Well, maybe I think we've moved past this, but if you talk to anyone who moved back to Pittsburgh in like the 90s or the decade afterwards, and they moved to Pittsburgh and they talk to someone who's been here for a while, what's the first question they get asked? Like, why would you do that?
Why are you here? Yeah, why did you come back?
Why would you come here? It's like, people would, like, many people have told me, like, native Pittsburghers would sort of ask them incredulously, why would you come here? Even though, again, most regions have. And we do have a lot of folks moving in every year and moving out.
Where are the folks who are leaving moving to?
It's a pretty simple thing. We can show you maps, but large metro areas near us is really where people go to. The places that top the list of the flows in and out of Pittsburgh are almost always, Washington, D.C., New York City, Cleveland, Philadelphia. These are large metro areas near us. And that's been that's not to say people aren't moving to California and Texas, but the big flows are there. Other than retiree migration.
Does anything actually bad happen if we drop below that 300,000 line, or does it just feel symbolically meaningful?
So, yeah, it all comes down to geography. So, again, you're talking about the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, if the city drops below.
So here's my answer. Look, there was actually, it pops up in political seasons. There was something of a rumor going around that if we drop below 300,000 people, we would no longer be considered by the Boffins and Harrisburg as a second-class city, which is a strange construct of Pennsylvania's highly fragmented local government.
That's already insulting. That's a separate issue.
And people thought that would mean something. Well, A, it's not true. We can drop below 300,000. We will still be considered a second-class city by folks in Harrisburg, for whatever that's worth, for a long time. So it doesn't really matter. It's a whole number. We obsess on whole numbers. Nothing in legal or economic terms will change. That doesn't mean there won't be a lot of angst and biting of teeth. And I'm sure it will be a matter debated in whatever the next political cycle is.
Do you have any big plans for the day that it's, official? I don't know if regional economists mark milestones and municipal shrinkage.
I'll block off a lot of time for the calls I'll get from people asking about whether it matters, and
people like me
come up with a pithy answer to say, no, I don't care. But,
You're always a ray of sunshine. Christopher Bream is a mastermind at Pitt's University Center for Social and Urban Research. Thank you.
Great to be here.
And don't go anywhere. In just a second, we've got a segment sponsored by the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. Executive producer Mallory Falk is chatting with Erin Lynn, their director of audience experience, all about their Disrupt shows. I actually went to one of these performances earlier this month. It was a really great experience. Think themed cocktails, a relaxed environment, and a host to guide you through the context and history of the music.
Hey, I'm CityCast Pittsburgh executive producer Mallory Falk, here with Erin Lynn, who's the director of audience experience at the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra. She's here to talk to us about their Disrupt concerts. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. I know that you have been with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra for 18 years. How have the shows and the way the audience experienced those shows changed over the time you've been there?
Yeah, the experience has changed where the audience wants more than just a concert. They want talking from stage, if it's the conductor, if it's a musician, if it's an artist, if it's a composer that is coming in that we're playing one of their pieces. They also just want kind of more in the theater, if it's information on screens or videos or different lighting or even a discussion from the stage. That has been the biggest change over the 18 years is audiences now definitely want more than just a concert when they come to a performance.
So you've got these 60-minute long Disrupt concerts. What can guests expect not only during those shows, but also before and after?
So we try to make sure that when people walk in the building, that there's an atmosphere that they're walking into before they actually go into the theater for the concert. So we have food and beverage that's on theme with whatever the concert is going to be a part of. We have some activities that are usually interactive or some are passive. There can be photo booths or there can be, musician Q&As, just anything that connects our audience more to the organization and the concert before they actually go into the theater for that actual 60-minute concert.
What's an example of a themed drink related to a concert?
One of our concerts, it was an American in Paris, and we had French 75s. Anything that we can make people feel like special, exclusive feeling for being able to have a drink that's related to the concert that they're going to see. We've done Dark and Stormies when we've had kind of dramatic performances, which we actually might bring that back for a future one.
I love that. And I know that Come As You Are is a big part of these concerts. How does that mindset just change the overall experience for guests?
Yeah, we have learned that the symphony as an industry, it has a stereotype of always being very formal. And with these concerts, we really wanted to break down that barrier to be able to say, yes, the symphony, isn't everything to everyone, but we have something for everyone so that when a guest walks in and knows that they can take their drink into the theater during the concert, that they're going to be addressed from stage, not in like an academic way, but in a conversational way to really give insights into what the music was about. Because realistically, I've said this to students in the past, all of these composers and these pieces, they were like the rock stars or the Beyoncés like of the era that they were being composed and performed during. So to give people that Come As You Are open door option that they don't have to feel that they don't belong, it's incredible to see people when they walk in and realize, oh, I do belong here. I can be a part of this community and feel comfortable
For you, as someone who has been part of this for a while now, what is your personal favorite part of attending a concert at the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra?
My favorite part is actually being able to be in our lobbies, seeing the guests and audience members come in with either a preconceived notion of what they're going to experience or no preconceived notion. Both are incredible to witness. And then following people as they're coming out and hearing what they say. Like, is there a difference? Can I tell that we made some sort of impact on them? That's my favorite part. I mean, aside from the music.
You've got a show coming up soon here, Ravel's Love Struck. That's on April 10th. Is there anything that you'd like to share about the show?
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited about this one because it really is diving into the greatest love story ever told. So that theme is going to be throughout the concert portion, throughout hosts' remarks, throughout the food and beverage, throughout all of the front of house spaces with selfie stations and just activities. We really are just super excited about telling the story of the greatest love story ever told.
Erin, thank you again for joining us. This all sounds so fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Again, check out pittsburghsymphony.org/disrupt to learn more. We will include that link in our show notes so that you are just a click away.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. One quick note about the new census data that just came out. Our friends at Axios Pittsburgh reported that part of the reason our population didn't shrink this time is because of immigration. We gained enough new folks, a net of about 450 residents, to make up for the nearly 10,000 we lost year over year. We'll link to their reporting in our show notes. And we'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then.
I can't believe we're losing people to Cleveland.
Well, we're probably gaining people from Cleveland too. So, we want to discuss Cleveburg. I think of it all as the same thing, right? Cleveland, Pittsburgh, 2 hours up the turnpike. Is it really a different place? I'd say no.